I can fix that. Follow me.
Are you feeling stressed out, or are you a frazzled teacher? Well, come to Jean Piaget's Rehab for Frazzled Teachers. Here at Jean Piaget's Rehab Center, we focus on and specialize in the studies done by Jean Piaget and the concept of ages and stages, beginning with sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. By the time you leave Jean Piaget's Rehab Center, we guarantee that you will be a much more confident and successful teacher. Okay, so first, let's step into the sensory motor room.
What's the sensory motor room, Doctor?
So sensory motor ranges from birth to 2 years of age. So infants learn mostly through trial and error learning. Children initially rely on reflexes, eventually modifying them to adapt to the real world. Behaviors become goal-directed, progressing from concrete to abstract. Objects and events can be mentally represented by the child, or sometimes called object permanence.
What's object permanence, Doctor?
Object permanence means knowing that an object still exists, even if it is hidden. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object.
Hi!
So, would you like to move on to the next stage?
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to the pre-operational arm. So, let's meet Cindy. As you can see, Cindy has moved from the sensory motor stage onto the pre-operational stage. Younger children don't play pretend like children who are 2 to 7 years old. It's because they can't imagine things they aren't seeing until they have reached this stage.
What does that have to do with me? I'm a teacher, not a daycare worker.
True, but you need to understand that play is very important to children during this age. It isn't just play to them. They are learning to think and process information mentally. Also, you need to understand that at this stage, children are still egocentric. They can't distinguish between someone else's perspective and their own.
Well, that's all fascinating, but what about when the student moves beyond the pre-operational stage?
So let's move on to the concrete operational stage. So, as we move to the concrete operational stage, it's the stage that usually follows pre-operational. And this is when they begin to learn their logic thinking. Let's move on to the concrete operational.
Oh, teacher, here! This is for you.
Thanks. Alright, so what do we have going on here?
Well, you wanted me to solve the problem.
Oh, the water line problem. Okay, so by looking at this, can you tell me where the water line is as of now?
Right here.
Do you want to draw it on the board for me?
Right here.
Okay, good. Now, when I turn it sideways, now where's the water line?
Oh, right there.
Great. During this stage, children begin to think logically about concrete events. They begin to gain the ability of the concept of conservation.
Well, what's conservation?
Conservation is the idea that some characteristics of an object stays the same even though the object might change in appearance. A cognitive ability that develops in the concrete operational stage according to the studies of Piaget. Thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete. They begin using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to a general principle.
But, Doctor, what's that supposed to look like?
Okay, for example, they continue to use visual aids and hands-on demonstrations whenever possible, particularly when covering more difficult concepts. Ensure reading is relatively short and sequential. Be sure to keep presentations brief as well. When dealing with the abstract concepts, incorporate concrete examples or familiar examples from daily life that will help them link the concrete examples and abstract concepts together. So spend time in the class allowing students to classify and group objects and ideas on increasingly complex levels. Finally, challenge your students with higher thinking in tasks and problems.
So where are we headed now?
We're going to take a step into the formal operation.
No, this is what I've been trying to get my students to do. They need to be thinking hypothetically and figuratively, but I can't seem to get them to think outside the box.
Well, it may not be your fault. As you can see here, this student is able to solve the problems based on hypothetical deductive reasoning. She and him are able to use their previous knowledge from one situation and apply it here in order to work through the problem before them. The fact that your students are not able to work at this level yet is not something that you can change.
It's not?
No, each child will go through these stages on their own and will progress only when they are mentally ready. You may want them to think on a higher level, but your students may not be ready to move on yet.
Well, what am I supposed to do then?
It is our job to guide them into the next stage successfully. We cannot make the progress happen faster, but only watch and wait for the student to move from one stage to the next and help them as much as we can.
After coming to Jean Piaget's Rehab Center, I have learned how to become a much more confident teacher. Thank you, Doctor.